We're here to idea you, to fire up your curiosity and connect you with the people and ideas that shape our world. Watch, listen, understand, connect, and create. Let's move the human story forward together.
Hello and welcome to The Poetry of Science, a podcast which provides insight into new scientific research via the medium of poetry. I'm your host, Dr. Sam Illingworth, and each week I'll be introducing you to some of the latest scientific findings and sharing a selection of science-themed poetry. After all, we could all do with a little bit more poetry in our lives. In this episode, I'll be exploring new research which has found that climate change likely triggered pandemics in antiquity. In the sunken eagle's nest, silted scripts tell tales of ancient skies, mapped against a quickened pulse and gentle sigh of life. Through time's unbending lens, stories unfold in layers of earth, a chronicle of climate etched into an empire's heart. Cold spells lined up with unseen storms of pestilence, disease, death, as if the earth itself sought to dim the eternal flame. Every stratum a vestige to the enormity of life and the folly of our designs. This poem is inspired by recent research published in Science Advances, in which analysing ancient climate records has revealed how environmental changes and diseases shaped societies from 200 BCE to 600 CE. Understanding how ancient societies dealt with natural climate changes can shed light on how people might respond to current environmental challenges and the connections between the environment and diseases. When we look into the past, particularly through detailed climate records that track changes over short periods of time, we gain insights into how environmental stresses influence societies. Such records can tell us not only about the weather patterns, but also about how these patterns may have affected health and the spread of diseases, especially when we can see these changes on a local scale. This study presents a detailed climate history from 200 BCE to 600 CE, using marine sediments from southern Italy to trace the Roman Empire's zenith and decline. It provides the first detailed climate records, with a resolution of about every 3 years, for the Empire's heartland, revealing marked climate instability and cooling from 100 CE, intensifying after 130 CE. The research identifies specific cold spells, around 160 to 180 CE, 245 to 275 CE, and after 530 CE, that aligned with pandemic outbreaks. These findings indicate that climate shift significantly influenced societal and biological factors affecting ancient societies' health and stability. The link between climate stress and disease highlights the importance of including health in current climate change risk assessments, highlighting the long-term interaction between human societies and their environment. Now that you've heard the science, let me read the poem to you again. In the sunken eagle's nest, silted scripts tell tales of ancient skies, mapped against a quickened pulse and gentle sigh of life. Through time's unbending lens, stories unfold in layers of earth, a chronicle of climate etched into an empire's heart. Cold spells lined up with unseen storms of pestilence, disease, death, as if the earth itself sought to dim the eternal flame. Every stratum a vestige to the enormity of life and the folly of our designs. In this section of the podcast, I like to share a poem written by another poet on a topic related to the science that has been discussed so far. In this episode, I'll be reading Return to Rome by Stanley Moss. Stanley Moss is an American poet who was born in Woodhaven, New York in 1925. Educated at Trinity College and Yale University, he served in the US Navy during World War II. Moss's poetry captures the essence of human experience, exploring themes of love, nature and spirituality with a unique voice. His extensive bibliography includes celebrated collections such as The Skull of Adam, published in 1979, and A History of Colour, published in 2003. Beyond his literary achievements, Moss is also recognised for his role as the founder and editor of the Sheep Meadow Press, a renowned poetry publishing house. He makes his living as a private art dealer, largely in Spanish and Italian Old Masters, and lives in Clinton Corners, New York. Return to Rome by Stanley Moss. Today in Rome, heading down Michelangelo's Spanish steps under an unchanging moon, I held on to the balustrade, grateful for his giving me a hand. All for love I stumbled over the past as if it were at my own feet. Here in my 20s I was lost in love and poetry. Along the Tiber I made up cubist Shakespearean games. In writing, even in those days, I cannot say it was popular to have subjects any more than painters use sitters, but I did. I played with an ignorant mirror for an audience, myself, embroiled with Personae from Antony and Cleopatra, delusions of grandeur. They were for a time my foul-weather friends, as once I played with soldiers on the mountainous countryside of a purple blanket. Thank you for listening to the Poetry of Science.
Thank you very much for being with us for this episode of the ideaXme Show. ideaXme is a global platform. Our mission is to move the human story forward by sharing knowledge of the future. You can find us on all major audio networks at www.radioideaXme.com, on YouTube and Vimeo. Please subscribe.